Frutevil Aero, also known as Aero Hell, is a newly created sub-aesthetic to the already niche internet aesthetic known as Frutiger Aero. If you have no idea what any of that first sentence meant or what Frutiger Aero is, I'll try and catch you up to speed. Enjoy the video. Do you remember when product advertisements looked like this? Far more colourful and lively than the bland minimalism that we have today. These are all examples of the internet aesthetic known as Frutiger Aero. Frutiger Aero is a design choice that was largely used in product advertisements, particularly in advertisements for tech products, and also user interface design from around 2004 to 2013. The aesthetic's name is a conjunction of the Frutiger font, often used during this time period, and Windows Aero, the user interface theme for Windows Vista and Windows 7. The key components of a Frutiger Aero image is the use of water, grass, humanism, glossy textures, bokeh photography, lens flares, smooth curved lines, corporate themes, bubbles, flourish patterns, bright color palettes, and skeuomorphism, only when the aesthetic is present in user interface designs however. It is the successor to the Y2K aesthetic, which lasted from the 90s until the early 2000s, and the predecessor to flat design, which is still being used today. The main reason the Frutiger Aero aesthetic existed was to help introduce people into the growing market for technology during the early 2000s. Nowadays, in the Western world, most people, even older people, have a phone or at least a computer with access to the internet. But back in the early 2000s, under the Y2K aesthetic, computers were seen in pop culture as being kind of complex and associated with hackers and coding. In order to make less internet savvy people more comfortable using new technology, the Frutiger Aero aesthetic was adopted. It was used in product advertisements and also user interface designs to present the new available technology as natural and people-friendly as well as easy to use, to try and remove the barrier to entry for new consumers, thus bringing in more revenue to tech companies. Many people have a strong sense of nostalgia for the Frutiger Aero aesthetic and how it represented a brighter future, or at least how it looks far more visually pleasing than the boring flat designs that are all too present nowadays. However, Frutevil Aero removes that nostalgia for a better future and only shows the downside to the early 2000s technology expansion and its negative impacts on the environment. Warning, we will go into way more depth than needed from this point on. I first found out about this subgenre on r/Frutiger Aero. A few weeks ago a post was made which is actually the most upvoted on the entire subreddit. The post reads, "I've created Frutevil Aero, a new sick and twisted aesthetic." As you may immediately notice by the images they included, this new aesthetic takes elements of Frutiger Aero and kind of inverses them. For example, the blue water and sky in this Frutiger Aero image has been replaced with red water that looks like blood. The seagulls have been swapped for bats, and the colourful fish are malnourished. Similar things have been done in the second image, but this time the water has been substituted for lava, and there is a factory causing pollution inside the monitor screen. The third image replaces this picturesque green hill for a cracked desert mound, and the fourth image again shows these factories and weed for some reason. If you haven't noticed by now, Frutevil Aero is a satirical response to the green and colourful visions of the future, presented in the Frutiger Aero aesthetic. Frutevil exists as a way to show how corporations and tech companies were selling us this vision of a bright, positive, utopic future, not in the hopes of actually achieving it, but as a way to sell more products to the consumer and make more money. As I said earlier, Frutevil Aero removes that nostalgia we have for the early 2000s and only shows the downside to the tech expansion during the same time. These images mainly focus on the bad effects of technology and corporations as a whole, and their negative impacts on the environment, and often tie in the issue of global warming, which is the reason why factories and dead barren environments are so prevalent in these images. Why does this strange sub-aesthetic of the already pretty niche Frutiger Aero even exist? The original poster likely wanted to just practice their graphic design skills, but also there is a phenomenon known as the 20-year nostalgia cycle. The 20-year nostalgia cycle is a concept that means when a trend is popular, then dies out, it usually returns with the aid of nostalgia after around 20 years. Some people, including myself, believe it's more of a 30-year nostalgia cycle, but either way this means that after about the same time as a generation, people often become nostalgic for trends of the past generation. I don't have TikTok, but Instagram Reels are all the same, and I've seen so many posts about Y2K fashion. If you have TikTok, you've probably noticed this as well, and the recent spike of Y2K fashion, a style that is over 20 years old at this point, is an example of the 20-year nostalgia cycle in action. This same thing is what has led to the Frutiger Aero resurgence, where people have begun to feel nostalgia for the past, where the future, which is our present, was so bright and blissful. This has also led to the emergence of the Frutevil Aero aesthetic, as a way to show the negative side of Frutiger Aero that some people have forgotten. Often we view nostalgia through rose-tinted glasses, where we tend to only remember the good things and forget some of the bad things of the past. I have no idea whether the Frutevil Aero aesthetic will have longevity or will become forgotten as time goes on. Either way, it's a pretty interesting concept which shows the dark side of that early 2000s nostalgia that many of us have. I'll put a link in the description to r/Frutevil Aero if you want to check it out. For this next section of the video, I will quickly run through some of the other sub-aesthetics to Frutiger Aero, to help you understand where Frutevil Aero fits amongst other offshoots of the Frutiger family tree. Frutiger Metro takes elements of Frutiger Aero, but instead of using glossy 3D textures, it uses flat 2D minimalist designs. I would consider this its own aesthetic because it's very different and it also has its own sub-aesthetics. Frutiger Metro designs were pretty common in those early 2010 school notebooks, and I remember having one when I was a kid with a guitar on it. Jaden Salads has a great video on this aesthetic if you're interested. Techno Zen is an aesthetic similar to Frutiger Aero with visual inspiration from Japanese culture. Techno Zen is a broad aesthetic ranging from interior design, technology, and music. The philosophy of Techno Zen is centered around the belief that technology should improve life, not be a distraction. As a result, Techno Zen architecture is usually minimalist and uses light natural colors. Use in technology includes the Nintendo Wii, Nintendo DS, and the Panasonic Let's Note. The music associated with Techno Zen ranges from video game music to synthwave, ambient music, muzak, bossa nova, city pop, among others. Frutiger Eco is essentially Frutiger Aero but with more focus on the environment and its sustainability, as well as the issue of climate change. It often features visions of a utopic, eco-friendly future. Examples of this aesthetic are on screen. Dark Aero, also known as Frutiger Ego, takes the base elements of Frutiger and uses a darker color palette. It's often described as being more sleek due to it usually being less cluttered and embracing a simple but glossy design. This aesthetic was mainly used in marketing for high-end luxury items. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Consider checking out some of my other content on my channel or suggesting ideas of your own in the comment section down below. As always, I'll put links in the description for the music and references I used. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one.